Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, February the 12th, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We pride ourselves on being a new podcast, which means we do take our research very seriously. We only go from the areas of news publications that have award-winning journalism certifications. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Daily Beast, The Blaze, whatever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We give you nothing but the facts. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes, hey, words do fly, and sometimes there may be video that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised aside from that welcome. So how do we pretty much start this? Because, again, as the title says, welcome to your first monarchy, America. England would be proud. And, yes, I think it's high time we need to admit, although I'm pretty sure besides myself, a lot of other people have already called this, the moment we knew that, hey, if Dorito becomes president again, he will get the dictatorship/monarchy that only England would be proud of. And yet, here we are. Don't believe me? Let's start with the first one. That, Trump wants to reach out to the King of Jordan, who agrees to take in Gazan children because apparently Gaza's for sale.
Well, you can see President Trump and the King of Jordan there in the Oval, other cabinet members. Trump making his demand pretty clear. Take in more Palestinians or say goodbye to U.S. aid. All of this as the Israel-Hamas ceasefire in Gaza now hangs by a thread. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. The president and King Abdullah there met for about an hour behind closed doors before you saw them there taking reporters' questions. Trump wants Jordan and Egypt to take in about 2 million Palestinians from Gaza so he can turn the war-torn land into what he calls the Riviera of the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also doubling down on Trump's deadline, saying return all Israeli hostages by Saturday or the ceasefire will be terminated. Let's bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers, foreign correspondent Britt Clennett, who's in Jerusalem, also our ABC News contributor Mick Mulroy joining us in this conversation. Karen, let's start with you. Trump said right there he has a, quote, magnificent plan for Gaza, but when King Abdullah was asked about the plan, really didn't give much support for the idea there.
Essentially saying, let's put the brakes on this right now and have more conversations with partners in the region. Let's talk with Egypt. Let's talk with other allies about the way forward there and what can be done to rebuild Gaza. If that's what the president is saying is a commitment that his administration is willing to make. The president was asked about the U.S. buying Gaza, and he said that that's not something that he is talking about doing. He said, we will take it, we will hold it, and we will cherish it. So he is continuing to push on that proposal of his where the United States would go in and somehow take over this sovereign territory. But Kira, you and I have talked about this over these past week and a half now about the lack of details about how this would get funded when the White House says that U.S. taxpayers wouldn't be paying for it and who would actually do the rebuilding effort. The other big headline to come out of that there was the president saying that he was not threatening aid to Jordan over the issue of taking in displaced Palestinians. The president has been putting significant pressure on Jordan and Egypt to take in nearly 2 million people that are living in Gaza, whether that's temporary or permanent. It kind of depends on the day here. But the president said, no, we don't have to threaten that. He said, I do believe we're above that. Kira, just yesterday, he said it's conceivable that he would consider withholding aid to Jordan if they didn't give in to these demands. And it's a lot of money, $1.7 billion a year from the U.S. to Jordan.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now officially become world realtors. I was going to say world police, but we've become world realtors now. Because, yes, Gaza is now for sale. He called it the Riviera of the Middle East. Only a businessman would sit there and think about the ways of how can I make money from the most powerful seat of the United States and not make it seem like I'm a dictator. Well, let's remove everybody from Gaza because, my donor friends have plans. And I can actually go ahead and tell King Abdullah, hey, I can actually tell the king there, hey, King, tell the king over there, I can tell the king, hey, you take on 2,000 children, we'll get Egypt and the rest of them to go along. We'll get Jordan and Egypt to go along. And hey, Gaza's open for business. You can do whatever you want. Because again, this is Trump doing what he does best. Selling a BS lie and then expecting people to eat it. Which I think it's kind of funny. It's like, we're not threatening Jordan and Egypt withholding USA aid from them. Yes, you are. Even the lack of a threat does not mean that a threat is not there. At the same time, between what's going on in Gaza, between Palestine and Israel, let's be honest, there are those currently in the White House who will love nothing more than an ongoing war between the two, as it's always been going on. And the fact of the matter is, some of them side with Israel. Actually, a lot of them side with Israel. That also being said, Gaza's a problem. Why? It's full of refugees. What do you do with refugees instead of helping them? You want to evacuate them or, quote unquote, get rid of them. Why? Because Gaza has been sold. It has been offered and sold. And it's amazing to me how Trump is like saying, well, we're not saying that. We're not saying it's a threat. We're not saying, Americans aren't going to pay for this. We're going to hold Gaza. So we're going to hold Gaza and cherish it. Cherish it. It's not a Hallmark card. It is a continent that doesn't belong to us. In the same sense, how you want to take back the Panama Canal because the late President Carter, you thought he did a bad deal giving up the Panama Canal, not realizing that you would need about the same size number of troops that were deployed in Afghanistan to hold and maintain it for no other reason except that you think that Panama Canal belongs to us. And this is coming from the same guy who now looks at Gaza and says, we want to hold Gaza and cherish it. We don't want to own it. Be honest, Dorito. Because, again, we know what it is. You basically want to use... here's the thing I will say this. I feel bad for anybody who's in the armed forces right now. I get it. The call to serve is great. It's an honor. Nothing wrong with that. Thank you for your service. But you guys have the worst time to be under military obedience to a dictator who will send you somewhere for no other reason other to oppress or to remove or eliminate. Because that's what he'll do. Him and his group of people will do that, especially his war profiteers and the private military corporations. They love this stuff. So why else would he be interested in Gaza? Minerals. The same. Actually, you know what the funny part is? The same reason he's interested in Gaza is the same reason that he's holding off on giving Ukraine anything unless they give him something. Their resources. Gaza, much like Ukraine, has very valuable resources. And the most businessmen see resources the same way a butcher shop sees a bunch of cows. You see money. But the problem is you have a lot of people that are still occupying it. And what do? You literally try to pull the eminent domain card that the U.S. is known for. And so now, two other countries are now being pulled into this mess in order to give Trump's buddies what they want. But again, how is this not a war crime? That's what I want to know. But again, we'll follow it because, again, with Trump, he has a whole lot of other issues. Much like his, how can I put this so nicely? His buyout plan, which again is locked up, but also the billions that he put in federal funding. Now, follow me on this story. It's a little bit of a long one. Now, one judge actually sat there and said, you know what? We are going to deny your request to try to go ahead and, well, as he said, he wasn't going after people that was receiving federal funding, but he was. But anyway, there was an order in place that prevented Trump from actually doing what his executive order did, which, by the way, an executive order cannot be done without congressional approval. So Trump couldn't do it anyway without Congress. That being said, he tried to push forward on it. At the same time, a court said no. And then a federal appeals court, because, Trump in litigation went back and appealed it. And the federal appeal court said, no, we are not going to unblock it. And here's the thing when it comes to judges now, because for everybody that doesn't know what's going on, now judges are being looked at. Judges are being looked at to see who was appointed by. Now, again, I can sit there and say that too, because it was a Trump-appointed judge that dropped his case with the federal, with the FBI regarding all the secure documents that he had when he wasn't a president at his Mar-a-Lago. A Trump-appointed judge actually tried to drop the case. A Trump-appointed DA actually got Fannie Willis off the case against him in his Georgia federal election interference case. Again, another Trump-appointed person. Now, here's the funny part. Now, Trump was the main one talking about, oh, well, they're going to weaponize the FBI. They're going to weaponize the AG against me. And you know what? It's unfair. It's a witch hunt. Really? And yet he's doing the same thing with his new AG, who, by the way, isn't really qualified, but she's blonde. She's dumb. She knows how to kiss the ring. At the same time, she can read a statement.
So now President Trump defending DOJ's efforts to root out corruption in the government. He's touting the early results already and blasting the courts for ruling against the department, which could play out for some time now. The Attorney General, fresh on the job, is Pam Bondi. She's got a beautiful backdrop there at the North Lawn of the White House. And thank you for your time and good morning. Good morning to you. Yeah, I want to play a soundbite from yesterday about the judges here. Here is President Trump on that.
We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation.
Just that comment in there about maybe we have to look at the judges. What does that mean?
Well, Bill, we have so many unelected judges who are trying to control government spending, and there is a clear separation of powers. They're doing it to Elon Musk, who is a great man and a good friend at Doge. What they're doing to him is to our country is outrageous. People work their whole lives and pay taxes, yet they find out that they've been giving $2 million to Guatemala for sex changes. It's outrageous, and it's going to stop. We're going to fight back, not only with U.S. aid and all these other agencies, but, this is happening every day. But DOJ, we are prepared to defend all of these cases, and we will carry out President Trump's agenda.
Got it. In time, and you may be successful in that, but the president can't go after these judges, so to speak.
Well, these judges are lifetime appointments, but what we can do is appeal them. And that's what's actually happening today in a case. We're appealing a case right now. It went up to the First Circuit, and the First Circuit sent it back to the district court to clarify. And if they don't rule in our favor, we will go to the United States Supreme Court and get clarification and get a ruling, because we have outrageous, overzealous, unconstitutional judges trying to control federal spending. And, that's what's been happening to Kristi Noem. The Roosevelt Hotel, of course, is the most prominent example of that, trying to force us to release tax dollars. And one unelected district judge is trying to do that to our entire country, but we will appeal it. Okay. And that is our remedy.
Okay, I got to stop her right there, because number one, she's full of shit. And also, it's Fox News. We already know Fox News is not a real news channel. It is an entertainment network. Although, still mad we could have actually had a trial to where Fox News would actually be on trial and a lot of its correspondence. But anyway, Pam Bondi, empty blonde-ass airhead. Understandable. But this is what they're doing now. They are literally, this is Trump's playbook. And I keep pointing this out about Trump's playbook. Trump loves to basically attack. When he attacks, he attacks because he can't do anything else. He'll sit there and say, oh, well, the AG is corrupt. The president's corrupt. The FBI is corrupt. Now it's judges. Keep in mind, his scope changes because, again, if he doesn't get his way, he pouts, he whines, he goes on social media, complains that, again, how unfair it is to him for a guy that is now the president, and you're still whining, still blaming Biden, and Biden is long off into the sunset by now. But yet it's like, now your AG, who, by the way, the Attorney General's job is to actually protect and uphold the ethics of judges, because no judge is ever unelected. First off, all judges are elected by due process or by special election. Bondi would know that, but again, she's not qualified to be Attorney General. She's a fucking idiot. Number two, so again, if a judge rules against it, here's the problem that a lot of people are not getting. That why is it whenever Trump does not get his way legally, him or his mouthpieces, Pam Bondi, case in point, always love to do this. We will appeal and we will appeal and we'll go to the Supreme Court. Here's my thing about the Supreme Court. I think at some point, the Supreme Court has to sit there and say no. Not all cases need to be heard at the Supreme Court. Not all. Trump believes every one of his cases should be heard at the Supreme Court. And I'm sorry, if I'm on the Supreme Court, which, by the way, I keep saying this, I've been saying this for last year, is heavily conservative leaning. I still blame Biden because Biden could have turned around and honestly balanced out the Supreme Court. I would have, because you had reconciliation on your side for a short while, but that's in the past. The thing about it is now, the Supreme Court is still conservative leaning, which means that Trump will sit there and treat it like Mario Kart. He will go all the way into Rainbow Road and say, I can get this heard by the Supreme Court. And it's almost a guarantee that the Supreme Court may rule in his freaking favor. So this is the problem that I have with this, guys, is that Trump knows that he can litigate the crap over this. And then yet, eventually, may actually, and the scary part is, may get his way. May actually get his way. And that's the freaking problem. That he, instead of him actually following the proper due process of policy and lawmaking, if he doesn't get his way, he sues. But that's what he's done all his life. He's done all his life with daddy's money. That if he couldn't get something, he litigated to death. He had the money to do so. He knew where he could borrow the money. He knew if he was compromised, he could get money. So we really shouldn't be surprised here that that's exactly what he'll do in this case, because again, now he's going after judges. Watch Fox News. Again, Fox News, his state media will turn around and start attacking judges. Oh, well, he was appointed by Biden. He was appointed by Obama. Note, he's going to go after every one of these judges that don't agree with him. This is not new. This is his playbook. He will try to identify, villainize, and then he'll try to ostracize them. He did it with the Republican Party. He did it with the FBI. He did it with he tried to do it during the federal election, do the election process, and now he's doing it with judges. This man has no shame. And yet, if the Supreme Court had any sense, which four of them do, four of them actually have sense, the other ones would be like, no, we'll hear it out, because they're going to do what they're told. They're going to kiss the ring, which again ticks me off, because another judge, and again, we're still sticking with the federal policy on being frozen. Well, one judge decided to kiss the ring, and we shouldn't be surprised.
Some breaking news now here in Washington at a federal court. A judge is now unpausing that temporary pause on that so-called buyout program, that deferred resignation for millions of federal workers. Remember that? That's that fork in the road email that's kind of gotten so much attention. Why? Well, this judge says the unions suing lack standing because they're not directly impacted. Instead, they're suing on behalf of the workers who are getting this offer. Now, the White House says something like 65,000 workers have accepted what's being colloquially called a buyout here. They want a lot more to take this up. They want like 200,000. Let me bring in Ryan Riley, who's joining us now. Okay, so just to recap, right? This was this note went out, this sort of email right in the early days of the Trump administration that basically suggested that workers would get kind of it's not quite a severance package, but it's like that, a deferred resignation package, basically, right? Then a judge comes in and says, nope, pause that. There's actually some legal questions here. Now the judge is lifting that pause. So what happens from here?
Yeah, I mean, the standing issue is one, basically saying that these unions don't have, the standing to bring this forward. So theoretically, you could see some other lawsuit from actual employees who would be impacted. Although it's kind of a little tricky, right? Because you're talking about employees who are being offered something, they don't necessarily have to take it. So I think this is one of those ones that's going to play out for a while. But, just to sort of set the base here, I'm at the Justice Department now. We just had a press conference with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and she described Elon Musk as a friend. And, Elon Musk has been the person driving a lot of this. She said that the Justice Department is going to be behind a lot of what Elon is doing and supporting him in any way that they can. It was one of the most unique press conferences I've seen. Probably the most unique press conference I've seen at the DOJ since. And I've been doing this for a minute now, and it was just quite something where you had these optics of these. They're announcing a civil lawsuit, and they had these officers in jackets that they would use to go on a raid, standing behind the Attorney General, and it was just. It was good. I think it was quite a moment. It's a different tone that is being set by the Justice Department here.
Yeah.
So again, Trump is basically getting his way. Although I got to say this, why above all else would you believe, for all those that are federal workers, do you really believe that Trump is going to pay you guys? You understand there are mountains of lawsuits where Trump has stiffed people over not paying them. Various mountains, years of lawsuits because folks did not get paid by Trump. Now that Trump's in the presidency, now Trump wants to listen to his idiot friend Elon Musk, who wants to basically cut personnel, which I think is a terrible idea because it always leads to disaster. Don't believe me? That's why we have airplane crashes in the last 20 years. The thing I'm getting at is, for those that signed on to this deferred resignation, do you really believe Trump is going to pay you? Considering the fact that, well, he's basically undoing, and I tell people all this time, I said, you know what's so amazing about Trump? He is undoing positive movement in less time than it takes to really be established in a state. He was able to undermine a moving forward economy. He was able to undermine moving forward economy, inflation being lowered, job markets actually being up, and he's undid that in under 30 days. Not surprised at all. But going back to the workers for a second, federal workers, I should say, if you really think that you're going to get paid some sort of severance package, I'm sorry. Here's what I'm going to go ahead and predict, because I can dang near almost see this coming. Trump is going to put you guys on a payment freeze, and then you're stuck. Or you're not going to get exactly what you think you're going to get, which makes it even worse. Because again, Trump has a history of stiffing people. And again, when it comes to federal employees, I'm sorry, you guys are about to get stiffed with a smiling AG in your face. And speaking of that AG, again, following Trump's, because remember when I said Trump always complained that everybody was weaponized against him, and yet he's doing the same thing? He gave AG Bondi new marching orders to go after the state of New York for immigration. You can't make this up.
Announcing the Trump administration is now filing charges against the state of New York and its top officials. Why? Watch this.
New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. New York didn't listen. So now you're next.
So part of this immigration push from the Trump administration. But it comes as we're also seeing immigrant rights advocates led by the ACLU file their own suit asking a federal judge to require the Trump administration to give migrants detained at Guantanamo Bay, migrants including the ones you're seeing here, access to lawyers. So yet another lawsuit now against something that President Trump or his administration has done. And you've already seen the way that federal courts have slowed or stopped or held up in some capacity some of the other moves that the Trump administration has tried to take, setting up what could be a high-stakes showdown between the executive and judicial branches of government. President Trump, right before we came on the air, talking about that tonight. Watch.
I follow the courts. I have to follow the law. All it means is that we appeal. But that gives people time to cover their tracks.
I want to bring in Gabe Gutierrez, who...
It does not get. I love how Trump tries to there and say, well, it gives people time to cover their tracks. Oh, something you're actually familiar with. Because It's amazing he wants to go after New York. Why? Because, well, maybe because he was found guilty of mortgage fraud in New York. Maybe he was found guilty of hush money payments during his campaign run to a porn star. Maybe it's the fact that he didn't like New York and yet moved to Florida, where the laws and things and policies were a little bit more familiar to him. But he goes up to New York because, again, New York has a very great standing on immigration, concerning the fact that it is one of the busiest ports in the world. There is a lot of influx coming in from Ellis Island. So, yet Trump, in his infinite stupidity, along with Elon Musk, along with everyone else, because he has empowered ICE. He's empowered ICE to go after what he calls illegal immigrants. And again, a lot of people are sitting there saying this, even in Facebook, I even catch it sometimes. We're saying, well, illegal immigrants are jumping the line ahead of citizens. I'm going to ask this question. How? How and how do you figure? Because people mostly some diluted napkins and some overcooked ones always want to kiss the ring and say, no, Trump's right. There are some illegal immigrants that are getting ahead of people. How? I asked this question. Where are they getting ahead of? Because I know for one thing, ICE is wanting to enter in schools, churches, things of that nature, trying to find illegal immigrants. And folks are, on the side on education. It's like, well, that's great. Illegal children who are illegal shouldn't get education. It is amazing how many people say that and have no problem, like stone-faced, believing every word they say. Well, illegal children or children of illegals shouldn't get public education ahead of my own child. You do understand, for public education, everybody registers the same way. There is no priority or selection or things of that nature. You're thinking charter or private schools, to where, yeah, there's a wait list in some areas, but public school, no, pretty much you sign in, bring your shop records, all that good stuff. Hey, you're on in. But public school has never turned away anybody, illegal or citizen. But again, what did Trump want to do? Wanted to hold the greatest mass removal of illegal immigrants since a certain trail that was done a long time ago. And it is amazing to me that when it comes to things of that nature, especially with the fact that even though these people are illegal, they still owe due process. Hence why those same illegal immigrants are like, we would like to have representation, which they are entitled to, because that was the problem at the border. That was the crazy part is that was the biggest problem at the border. Instead of saying the National Guard and barbed wire and guys and cowboys on whips to actually deal with what they call a quote unquote threat, you could have sent judges, lawyers, clerks, staff to actually help with immigration. Or, this is just a big ass order, fix the immigration system. The one thing that conservatives love not to talk about, they love not to talk about not fixing the immigration system. They love to talk about, oh, there's an immigration problem. They love to talk about, oh, look how these immigrants are killing white women. They love to talk about these things. But here's the central problem. The central problem is fix the system. Much like fixing the VA. Veterans can get all the help. Veterans should be able to get all the help they need at no cost to them. Why? Because they served our freaking country. That's why. But yet the VA system, all fracked up. Will conservatives fix it? No. Will they support the troops? They say they do, but it's full of shit. The thing I'm getting at is conservatives love to complain about problems, but never the solutions. Oh, we're going to cut the budget. Oh, so you're going to cut the military spending and actually leave Medicare and Social Security alone? No, we're going to cut those too, but we're going to leave the military alone because, they need the blank checks. But we're going to go to Health and Human Services because there are a lot of people that are getting support that don't get support. And those illegal immigrants get everything. The Fox News rotunda of bullshit that they go with screams volumes. Volumes. And even now, as we go on to the next subject, Trump is now talking about doing something that, again, was not a part of his plan during his 100 days in office. He wants to get rid of the penny. Yes, a penny. I cannot make this up.
Penny. Penny.
Sheldon.
Like Sheldon Cooper, we are once again questioning a penny for what feels like the millionth time. Sunday night, a few hours after President Trump was seen during the national anthem at the Super Bowl, he posted on Truth Social that pennies are, quote, wasteful. He went on to say he has even commanded his Secretary of the Treasury to halt their production. Now, as we see when President Obama discussed pennies in 2013,
that's an example of something we should probably change.
President Trump is not our first commander-in-chief to feel pennies might need re-examining. However, with President Trump appearing so determined to cut costs in his first month back in office, could this be the catalyst to finally take President Lincoln's face out of the cup of change I keep in my junk drawer?
It's not an uncommon thing to get rid of any kind of a denomination that no longer has a function within day-to-day life.
As Caroline Turco of the Money Museum in Colorado Springs says there, this would not be the first time we got rid of a coin, just the first time in about 170 years with the half cent. According to the U.S. Mint, in the 2024 fiscal year, pennies cost almost 4 cents to produce, and the government lost about $85 million on the 3.2 billion pennies it made. So, do we just get rid of them then? Well, one thing to consider. As a group called Americans for Common Sense recently argued, the decrease in the production of pennies would lead to an increase in the production of nickels. The old 5-cent coin actually costs about 14 cents to make, which makes it even less efficient than the penny.
Hey, Ray, look, this week's hottest new release, 99 cents.
But the real question would be rounding. Since items could no longer cost, say, 99 cents or 4 easy payments of $19.99. Without pennies, would companies now round up or round down to make this work? There are arguments for both sides, but when Canada got rid of their penny in 2012, its government instructed companies to round in a, quote, fair and transparent manner. Now, guys, does President Trump and his Treasury Secretary have this kind of power? Well, technically speaking, it is Congress who oversees immense operations, but experts have weighed in and said that it is not totally clear if President Trump can just stop the production.
I'll save you some time. Congressional approval. He needs congressional approval. At the same time, this is one of those subjects where I'm just like, of all the things, and again, this is coming from a guy who told Biden he was too old to be president. And now I'm looking at you like, no, motherfucker, you too old to be president. You're worried about a penny production? And then even if they did do that, let's think about this for a second. You are basically saying to American businesses, hey, we want you guys to be fair and balanced toward your citizens on rounding up if we get rid of pennies. You're telling American businesses that on the faith that they themselves, they will be able to govern themselves. Conservatives love that. Oh, businesses can govern themselves. The invisible hand of the free market, which again is bullshit. But no, this is really a dead issue. Because why? There are other ways and areas you can cut spending. I can think of the military for one. You know, the military gets a blank check. I love to point this out. Our military has failed every audit that's ever been given. The Pentagon has failed every defense audit. And yet, every time they are given a blank check, their budget takes up more than half of the U.S. congressional budget. And at the same time, Medicare, Social Security, Human and Health Services, and other items get significantly reduced every year, along with education. But the military just keeps increasing. So what are you saying? We would rather have war than educated individuals, because if we had educated individuals, we wouldn't have war. But again, I digress, because Trump is worried about a penny. And it's not even 100 days in office yet. Go figure. But moving right along, guys, we want to get back with Luigi, because it's kind of been a while since we heard from Luigi, you know, the guy that decided that the CEO of United Health Group no longer need to be on this mortal plane. Well, he's actually getting donations. Quite a lot of them in prison.
We're going to turn now to accused killer Luigi Mangione accepting nearly $300,000 in donations as he fights murder charges in the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Petersky is back with more. Good morning again, Aaron.
And good morning again to you, Michael. This is quite an outpouring for an accused killer. In the 2 months since United Healthcare chief Brian Thompson was gunned down in Midtown Manhattan, the online legal defense fund for Luigi Mangione has reached $300,000, and donations picked up after a news report said they had slowed down. Newsweek reported last week contributions to Mangione's fund had slowed to a trickle, and in response, His attorney said Luigi is aware of the fund and very much appreciates the outpouring of support. That remark and the reporting prompted a series of online posts from supporters that appeared to spark renewed interest in Mangione's case and donations to help him fight state and federal charges. One of those charges carries the possibility of the death penalty, and his legal team just added a court-appointed death penalty expert. Mangione has pleaded not guilty in state court. He's yet to enter a plea to the federal charges. His lawyer said Mangione would accept all donations to aid his defense, Robin.
All right. Well, Luigi getting money. I can't knock. I mean, let me stress this very heavily, because there still is a divide on his actions toward the CEO. And for a lot of people, I've said this before, it's a little hard to relate if you've never had a horror story with an insurance company. I know for a lot of people that I've known have had horror stories with the insurance company about getting things covered, denied, or the prices are just simply outrageous. Now, does that mean that the CEO need no longer be on the mortal plane? That can be argued, considering the fact that he put in an AI system that automatically denied 35% of claims that actually came through United Health Group. So, I mean, take it how you will. But getting back to Luigi, it's going to be, like I said before, it's going to be an interesting case, because a lot of people have certain feelings. A lot of people have certain feelings toward insurance groups. I'm one of them. And if you put them on a jury for a guy who in his mind had a justified reason for what he did, I'm just saying a conviction is going to be a little bit difficult unless you find people that just will not relate. And that's a little hard to find, just saying. But again, $300,000 for his legal defense, his lawyers are going to be having a field day. But let's get back to the other thing Trump said he was going to undo. Lowering grocery bills, lowering the price of eggs. Yeah.
Wide egg shortage. Wholesale prices are at record levels, and many store shelves are empty as some major retailers crack down on hoarders. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman is in California with more for us. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Robin. The pain of egg shortages and soaring prices caused by these bird flu outbreaks is being felt by the public and businesses across multiple industries. And now eggs are considered such a hot commodity, they're the target of hoarding, even theft. This morning, with bird flu infections across the nation surging and egg supply plummeting.
$6.99 for a dozen, and I said, forget about it.
Egg prices are skyrocketing.
I go to the store and it's like $10 a carton. I'm like, what?
In Chino, California, a long line of motorists hoping to snag a dozen from a poultry farm wrapping around the block. Many also flocking to farmers markets.
Thank you.
How much would you say demand has gone up?
Super high.
Times 2, times 3?
Times 5, probably.
The H5N1 bird flu impacting tens of millions of farmed chickens nationwide. Egg prices up 65% in the last year. And businesses are also feeling the pressure. In Washington state, police are investigating this brazen theft after they say suspects stole more than 500 eggs from a local cafe. And that 50-cent surcharge Waffle House added per egg, now in the menu. And in LA, Cantor's Deli, in business for over a century, staggered by those egg prices.
If you go back to like October, we were paying $10,000, $11,000 in November. We get the bill for January. For December, it's $24,500, and that was like a shock.
A business has been in business for 105 years, now can't break even.
Not just simply because of the eggs. That's enough to do it.
And egg prices could go up another 20% this year, according to the Department of Agriculture. And because of the life cycle of hens, it would likely be another 6 months before new healthy flocks mature and prices stabilize. And that's assuming that there are no additional bird flu outbreaks, which itself is not entirely likely. So breakfast might continue to look a little different for a while, guys.
And yet, Trump is silent. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he can't control the bird flu. He can't sit there and prevent this from happening. It's not like he caused this. Yeah, I'm not saying he caused it, but I'm just saying before his ass almost became president, he was already shot at twice, and yet now all of a sudden, no shots. Not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying two things don't add up. That being said, yeah, businesses, everybody else is hurting, But those are selling the eggs. Like, I can't point this out. Why is it that whenever there's a shortage, I know a lot of people, a lot of people in economics and business folks are always going to stand and say it's the law of supply and demand. If the demand is high and the supply is low, the prices increase. How much would you pay to make sure that you have what you need? And it is amazing to me that it's price gouging. I mean, $10 for I'm sorry, I love eggs. Do not get me wrong. But I, at this point, will either raise my own chickens or go without eggs for a little while, because $10 for a dozen eggs is beyond ridiculous. You know what's bad when Waffle House, let's go, oh, well, we're increasing the price to 50 cents per egg. Waffle House, Old Reliable, is now raising their prices because of an egg shortage. Again, how is this not price gouging? How is this not being held to a certain standard? And why is Trump being silent? All the fact that we did point out on this show, literally just a month ago, where Trump sat there and said once he got the nod to be elected, oh well, I can't really control the cost of groceries. It's a lot harder than people think. And I just want to thank to all those people that voted for him when he said he can get grocery prices down, gas prices down, energy prices down, the price of eggs down. How dumb do you feel right now? In the words of Rihanna, you look so dumb right now. You have to be, because you fell for it. He's getting everything he wants. He's avoided jail. His cases are being thrown out. At the same time, those people are now paying more in groceries, more in gas, more in eggs, if you want eggs. And I'm just pointing this out because yet Trump has been silent on the price of eggs. He wants to put tariffs on everything else, but he doesn't want to go after what he said he's going to go after. And the rest of us are going, and you believed him. But speaking of people that can't do anything, Democrats. Why? Well, because Democrats basically are outmatched in the House and in the Senate. This is 2016 again, where we have a Republican-controlled Senate, a Republican-controlled House of Representatives, and now a Republican presidential administration. And Democrats, again, are fighting tooth and nail when it comes to the Department of Education, because Trump, again, decided that, hey, I'm going to do an executive action that basically abolishes the Department of Education. And even doing so, Democrats are doing their best to try to filibuster this, but, well, you'll see.
President Trump and Elon Musk want to cut public education for our children and our neighborhood schools to finance a $5 trillion tax giveaway to billionaires and wealthy corporations. By eliminating the Department of Education, Republicans are sending a clear message that they don't care about our children reaching their full potential. The American people did not vote for their neighborhood schools to be closed or class sizes to be larger. They did not vote to cut special education. The Republican war on students won't lower the cost of eggs or groceries, but it will raise property taxes, as the cost of Trump's education cuts will be forced onto parents and homeowners. House Democrats believe that education is the key to unlocking the American dream. Our focus is on securing the resources needed to improve public education outcome, raising test scores, and lowering dropout rates. If House Republicans won't stand up for our kids and end their war on students, then they should not ask for our votes to pass government funding bill.
Which he is right. But here's the one thing that I wish they would have done. Now, again, Democrats, you do find yourself in quite the hole. For the next, unfortunately, 2 years before we get to the midterms, you guys will not be as effective in Congress as you can be. That being said, I don't think that the answer is not just combating Trump and his people during these hearings and congressional meetings. I think that Democrats need to go back to ground and talk to the people. Like, okay, case in point, Department of Education is great. Why? Conservatives hate critical thinking individuals. They hate them because critical thinking individuals usually don't vote conservative. They usually vote Democratic progressive. That's just being honest. That being said, however, if the Department of Education with congressional approval does get abolished, that means that the conservatives have it the conservatives have it their way. They want to basically go tell the states, hey, you guys run your own educational systems. The federal government's out of it. Now, again, like I said before in the previous podcast, if you're in a progressive or a blue state that's usually Democratic, your school system is probably fine. If you're in a red state or conservative state where the school system is trash, might want to consider homeschool. Just saying. Because not only that, schools in rural areas depend on federal funding. Without that federal funding, those schools could actually cease to exist. At the same time, the kids suffer. This is why I say, Democrats, you have the perfect podium right now to go back to your constituents and say, here's what's going to happen if they go through with this. Here's what's going to happen in your state, in your county, in your city if this happens. The numbers, the data, the funding show exactly what happens. And that's how you get the public on your side. Because, yeah, you can filibuster and try to keep Trump from going through with this, but this is the crap that they want to pull. This is the crap outside of Christian nationalism, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But this is the crap they want to pull because they see education as a threat. Understand, conservatives see education that is not under them or of their curriculum or lack thereof. They see it as a threat. And even more so, that they think that they know better. Their moral ambiguity makes them think that they know better than anybody else. And so they want to force it on everybody. Hence why they say, well, go back to the states. You know why they want to go back to the states? Lack of accountability. We do not want to be held accountable because we did that to Democrats. We sat there and said, hey, that year of remote learning during COVID set kids back. Kids are still behind. Education is still down. Remember how I sat there and said that they'll use that as an excuse to sit there and paint that picture like, oh, they were the problem. Okay, now conservatives are in the driver's seat. And watch what the first thing you want to do. You don't want to fix the education system. You want to get rid of it and tell states to handle it on their own. Way to be accountable. Even more so, here's another reason why leaving it to the states is a very bad idea. There is a bill currently in Texas that is also similar to Georgia, Kentucky, Ohio, along with Louisiana. Because guys, remember Louisiana from last year when we sat there and talked about Louisiana passed a bill for the 10 Commandments to be seen in public schools. The 10 Commandments. You want to talk about a doctrine? You want to talk about a biblical reference that half the politicians have at least broken 6 of those rules that are currently in Congress, and you want to put that in a school full of kids and also have them believe in reciting the pledge, the flag, even though they don't believe in it. But what's so crazy is, guys, it's not just reality. It's not just, a joke. This can become reality. The reason why I say that is because think about what just happened. Trump, along with Musk, want to get rid of the Department of Education, want to force education back to the states. You already have states trying to put bills in to where Bible reading can be done in public schools. 10 Commandments can be seen everywhere. It won't, and I said, mark my words, especially for the fact that a lot of these so-called quote-unquote Christians want their own education to be the main education, or as they like to call them, even though they say they're Christians, I'm going to be honest and call them what they are, Christian nationalists, also known as terrorists. And that's what they want to do. They want to turn around and they want to sit there and say, well, this is what we want. This is what we want going forward for our state. And I'm sorry, before you start picking curriculums for the state thinking you know better, I want you to go to your actual rating of education within our 50 states. If you're not in at least the top 20, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. I'm just pointing that out. But again, we will see what happens because he cannot abolish the Department of Education without congressional approval. But you already see states are putting in laws or trying to put in laws in place. So the Department of Education was there to be abolished. Their rules would go forward and education would look mighty different across these states. But speaking of things that should never happen, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi freaking Gabbard, a woman who was picked to be the director of national intelligence. She just, as of today, got Senate confirmation, with every Republican except Moscow Mitch not voting to confirm her. And though, again, this is the problem with the Senate, it's Republican dominated. All Democrats saw her as a threat. And yet, if enough Republicans voted for her, she stood the confirmation. Now, guys don't remember about Tulsi Gabbard. She was Democrat. Then she decided to turn Republican. Then she decided to speak against the Biden administration. Then she decided to talk about Trump. Then she decided to kiss the ring and then back up Trump. Then she decided to keep brown-nosing until Trump recommended her to be the director of national intelligence. Keep in mind, Tulsi Gabbard has had Russian ties. She has been seen as compromised, and she has been seen as compromised among foreign dignitaries, and she is now, as of yesterday, because there was a vote on Tuesday, will now be our next director of national intelligence. I cannot stress how terrible, how bad that truly is. Although I do want to point one thing out. One Democrat in particular, John Fetterman, I'm sorry, I don't know how in Pennsylvania, of all places, you became a freaking senator, but he chose not to vote. And here's my thing. Here's my thing about this. When you choose not to vote, it's almost like you don't want to do the job. And Fetterman, if you don't want to do the job, vacate your seat. Vacate your seat. Do something, because every vote counts. And yes, I know I said earlier, Republicans control the Senate and they control the House. But a lack of a vote screams that you don't even care. And when you don't care, that makes me wonder, why are you here? It's almost like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's like, why are you here? You'll get paid because somehow you got nominated again to be back in the representative seat. But unless you're doing some work, why are you here? You're just a waste of space this moment. But speaking of a waste of space, Kristi Noem endorses the plan to overhaul FEMA. By overhaul, she means that they want to get rid of it. Keep in mind, FEMA was heavily criticized for their responses to hurricanes and severe storm weather that did happen last month and a little bit in December of last year. Kristi Noem, because she has, again, as we said before in previous podcasts, has been nominated, her Senate confirmation to be Secretary of FEMA. Secretary of Homeland Security. So she now wants to look at FEMA and go, we want to change it. Keep in mind, she's doing nothing more than following Trump's orders. Trump wants to get rid of FEMA. He sees no reason to have FEMA, and yet he wants to get rid of it. She's just doing the marching orders. Do you see the problem with a lot of this cabinet? That they basically they follow what their king/dictator wants them to do. Where again, if you got rid of FEMA, other areas that would actually get severe storms or things of that nature would damaging to follow after. Without a FEMA in place, how does folks expect to take care of themselves? Considering the fact that California just got through with wildfires and insurance companies are trying to drop wildfire protection from a lot of their policies because they don't want to pay out. Another reason why we have things like FEMA to be put in place, so insurance companies are held with their feet to the fire. No pun intended. But now Kristi Noem decides, hey, we need to overhaul FEMA. And in Republicans' minds, overhaul, reduce, conform, update, rebrand just means get rid of. So we will see what happens with FEMA, because now we all should be concerned with the fact that we don't have a recovery response department that's dedicated to helping people when severe weather strikes. We'll see. But going back to Dorito, because now Dorito decided, because, hey, tariffs are going to work, he decided that he's going to put 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum products. Steel and aluminum imports. I wonder who this could affect.
Campaign pledged to rebuild the American steel industry. President Trump slapping new 25% tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum imports.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning. of making America rich again.
Some American steelworkers now praising the move.
That happens, it's going to help our industry. We're going to be able to regroup, and we're going to be able to stay alive.
But critics argue the tariffs will drive up prices for U.S. consumers. Discount store owner Peter Elitzer says he's been impacted by earlier tariffs on China. Are you worried that this will hurt your bottom line?
There's no question about it, because we'll have to absorb some of that, which is tough in a business that works on tight margins anyway. And it will also be problematic for the economy generally.
And the president promising new tariffs this week on countries that restrict the sale of American goods.
Reciprocal tariffs, and very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all.
The tariff talk comes amid a growing legal showdown over President Trump's efforts to downsize the federal government. This afternoon, a judge keeping the president's buyout offer to federal workers on pause, while another federal judge ruling the Trump administration has not fully followed his order to unfreeze federal spending that President Trump had stopped, and telling the White House to release all the money. But President Trump is defending his cost-cutting efforts.
And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
You know what kills me? I always love when I hear Trump talk about, well, we can't look into wasteful spending and fraud and investigate it. I just want to turn around and say, have you checked the mirror? Because really, Trump, of all people, you want to talk about theft and fraud and wasteful spending? Times I just want to hold up a mirror and say, you first. Look at the man in the mirror. But again, getting back to what I was saying, 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports to the United States. Keep in mind, there's a the reason why this should be alarming, because again, he wants to keep U.S. steel in U.S. because Nippon Steel has already made that deal, which again is being tied up. There's another reason why steel and aluminum should be very, very alarming as far as imports go, because, well, automakers take steel and aluminum imports. Specifically, Ford, as again, the Ford CEO has sat there and said that Trump's tariffs are causing chaos in the auto industry. Yes, I mean, but beforehand, you guys were already charging your 80K SUVs and your 90K trucks, but now with a 25% tariff tax on these things, now those prices are going to go up, and now automakers, including those of CEO, including the Ford CEO there, or Stellantis, or GM, or Nissan, or Honda, it's all going to add up at this rate. Because think about this: if he's putting in imports and on steel, and obviously steel and aluminum, cars are basically made out of those anyway, now it's going to be to a problem to where, yeah, prices these days are outrageous as it is, but now with a tariff cost on top of that, because the cost pass on the consumer, yeah, America's not going to be rich again. America's going to be pinching pennies that you want to get rid of, because you're barely going to have enough money to keep a roof over your head, much less be able to go out in a new vehicle. So let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if this tariff gets put on pause again. But moving right along, guys, because again, we got a few more things we get to our feel-good segment. Pete Hegseth. I refuse to call this man Secretary of Defense, but this pendejo has decided that he, along with President Trump, signed an executive order to bar transgender people from enlisting and serving in the military. They've also actually brought back people that had early resigned because they did not want to get the COVID vaccine at the time. And so those folks were let go or discharged, and now they're being brought back with back pay. Here's the problem with this. I've never understood. Number one, Pete Hegseth. I never understood him because his views on women in the military should have immediately disqualified him from being Secretary of Defense. His alcoholism, because I don't think that man is sober now, who sat there and said if he takes office, he will remain sober, who has a history of alcohol abuse, has a history of unprofessional behavior with his peers, and somehow, this National Guard veteran made his way to Fox News and wants to bring a warrior spirit back to the armed forces. And again, this is the thing that I've never understood. That if someone wants to serve, let them serve, regardless of their preference, regardless of their gender, regardless of how they identify themselves. Because aren't you guys having enough issues without having to engage the draft? Aren't enlistments across the board all down because you guys have significantly decided, hey, we don't, instead of don't ask, don't tell, it's like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Don't enlist. And I think that's a slap in the face, because if somebody wants to serve, let them serve. At the same time, for somebody like me who would rather serve under a chipmunk before I serve under that pendejo, yeah, that's how I feel about it. At the same time, it just goes to show you that they have no problem introducing phobias and bias and bigotry right back in the armed forces. Way to go, Mr. Alcoholic. But anyway, guys, the other story that I do got outside of Yay, which we'll get to, but our last story, you guys remember this story a while back about the guy who was held down by hotel security in a lying down position. That man eventually did pass away. Well, we do have an update on that story because justice may be slow, but murder charges have now officially been arraigned.
Since Devontae Mitchell was killed outside the Hyatt Regency, 37 days of waiting, praying, and protesting without any charges or arrests.
Say his name!
Tuesday afternoon, the four men seen in this viral video on top of Mitchell were charged.
It's a small victory, but we're grateful because we've been stepping for him and we're going to keep stepping, and we've seen what this stepping got us. We've seen what it got us, but we want these charges to stick.
Surrounded by love and support, Mitchell's siblings say justice has just begun.
We are grateful for the DA, making this move today, that he did, and we just hope that he keeps moving forward with doing the right thing.
Todd Erickson, Brandon Turner, Herbert Williamson, and Devin Johnson Carson, all former Hyatt employees, all charged with felony murder.
We felt that it should have happened sooner, but we are relieved today, finally, that they have charges brought for the killing of Devontae Mitchell.
We're also getting a first look into Milwaukee Police's investigation of Mitchell's murder. A criminal complaint details the events we've already seen on Hyatt surveillance video. Mitchell running from Brandon Turner, the off-duty security guard. Turner punching him repeatedly, pulling him to the ground, dragging him out of the hotel, and eventually this scene of the four men on top of him. The complaint states Mitchell does not instigate any violence or display any obviously aggressive or threatening behavior while on the hotel premise. It also claims Mitchell stopped showing movement or resistance or other signs of life as he's pinned to the ground for what police say is 8 to 9 minutes. The on-duty security guard, Todd Erickson, allegedly told police he and the other Hyatt security are not certified or trained. He also says Hyatt did not provide them with training in defense and arrest tactics.
And it's a bittersweet win because really we shouldn't be celebrating anybody getting charged for killing my brother because it should have never happened in the first place.
In Milwaukee,
Justice for Devontae!
Well, again, I mean, it's progress. It's slow progress, but it is progress. Yes, those four men have now been charged with murder. And it's amazing. They point out, well, we're not security. We haven't been trained, haven't been certified. So 3 out of the 4 men were charged with felony murder. So we will follow that story up to see what happens as the jury trial will actually begin in August. But, the last story, guys, I have before we get to our feel-good segment, this man is in the sunken place, and I think he just needs to accept it. But I do not think Kanye West could get any freaking lower. And usually I don't cover stuff about Kanye because he's an attention hog. He just wants the spotlight to himself. He's an idiot. But this is something that needs to be said. For all those that weren't watching the Grammys, had to think about it for yourself. I had to think about it. So it started off in the Grammys where him and his person and what she was wearing was just going fast forward to the Super Bowl where he actually did pay for a 30-second spot that looks like it was shown on his iPhone to where it directed to his site. On his website was a single shirt with a swastika on it. I cannot make this up. It literally and figuratively, Kanye, for at least 48 hours post Super Bowl, had his website up only with a single shirt for $20 with a swastika on it. Now, I don't really need to go into, and again, a simple Google search will help you with this as well. But it is amazing to me how much Nazi propaganda is allowed in the U.S. now. I mean, we should have seen it coming the moment that idiot Elon Musk bought Twitter, turned it to X, turned around and sat there and said free speech is for everybody. And we should have known the moment he bought it and turned to X that what we saw actually after that was just an amassment of hate speech, of slurs, of just pretty much the dark side of the internet. And we really shouldn't have been surprised by that because, again, it's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is an idiot. He thinks he's a genius, but he's really an idiot. Never created anything in his life. Always had daddy's diamond mine money. Bought Tesla, didn't create it. Bought SpaceX, didn't create it. And even now with the investment group trying to buy TikTok. The point I'm getting at here is, guys, is that when it comes to Nazi culture, it just seems to be tolerated. And I'm going to say this, even though this is going to be unprofessional, although Ye's website was taken down, thank goodness, because it needed to be, because it violated terms. Here's the thing I've always sat there and said about certain groups of people that believe they have the right to exist. You do. Freedom of speech is a wonderful thing. But freedom of speech does not guarantee absolution from your words or actions. And I will say this, I will never feel bad when someone does Nazi propaganda, someone sells swastikas or do swastikas or wears swastikas, someone's quoting Hitler saying Hitler's not a bad guy, or someone's trying to, make him look like this angelic figure. Whenever that happens, whenever somebody does that, and the next thing that happens to them is either immediate violence or karma, I don't feel bad for them. And I say this as the host of How the Frack We Got Here. I never feel bad when I sit there and say all Nazis and people who believe Nazis are good people should be stomped out. You should be. And I will not feel bad about saying that. Oh, Will, you're encouraging violence against Nazis. Yes. Yes, I am. Because how do we ensure, or how do we let people know that we don't tolerate something? You make that something intolerable to where they think twice. Because the simple fact of the matter is, when a group of Nazis can go walking down, and I'll use my city as an example. When a group of people dressed as Nazis can stroll down downtown Nashville untouched, protected by police, that screams volumes. When they can go anywhere else and march or hand out propaganda or pamphlets, when they can do that untouched, it's a problem. Yes, we are supposed to be tolerant of others. And here's the thing: we are supposed to be tolerant of other people's beliefs, religions, morals, things of that nature. But there has to be a consensus somewhere that Nazi, or just the fact of that entire movement, is evil, should be stomped out, and the folks that believe it deserve a two-piece and a biscuit. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually talk about a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes it makes you use faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow's hump day, which is tomorrow is post Friday Eve, which is Thursday. I almost said Wednesday again. And we will leave you guys out some good news and good vibrations. And this actually has something to do with the Super Bowl, specifically a person whose history in civil rights definitely needs to be heard, because, again, it is Black History Month, but it's Black 365 around here. But this woman definitely deserves her story and her flowers.
Counting down to the big game on Sunday between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, Morgan Norwood and Will Reeve are getting a preview of all the action at the Super Bowl experience in New Orleans. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning. We are having such a great time here. We're with some Chiefs fans. We got Eagles fans. As you can hear, they are very excited for the big game, and we're excited for what we have coming up right now.
Yeah, we are especially excited because we have someone really special in the crowd. We introduce you to Miss Leona Tate. If you can just come
on up, Leona. Yeah.
So good to have you this morning. How are you feeling?
Feeling very good.
It is Super Bowl week, a lot of excitement. You are a civil rights pioneer and an activist, and your bravery, we stand on the shoulders of that. But we put together a special piece, and we want our viewers at home to know a little bit more about your story. So take a look.
A pillar in the New Orleans community, Dr. Leona Tate has always championed equity in education and advocated for the youth.
Miss Tate is everything. Miss Tate is everybody's mom.
Her monumental contributions to the civil rights movement beginning when she was just 6 years old.
Now 4 Negro girls have been entered in the first grade of 2 New Orleans schools.
Part of a legendary trio, Tate, Gail Etienne, and Tessie Prevost, escorted by federal marshals, entered the all-white Madonna 19 Elementary School in November of 1960. Just a few miles away on the same day, Ruby Bridges headed to William Frantz Elementary, the 4 becoming the first Black girls to desegregate New Orleans public schools.
I can remember the marshals coming to the house, picking us up. We were well guarded.
Once I started understanding and saw what she really went through, I'm like, I couldn't have never done nothing like that. She is brave to me, because I would have been terrified.
As a result, white parents pulling their kids out of the school. And for 18 months, the 3 young girls were the only students in their class. Nearly 50 years later, the civil rights pioneer establishing the Leona Tate Foundation for Change. And in 2021, and with the help of community partners, she purchased McDonough 19. The former elementary school is now called the Tate, Etienne, and Prevost Center, and is dedicated to teaching the public about the history of desegregation of the Big Easy and training the next generation of social justice activists.
I just want her to know that, Mama, I'm so proud of you. I love you. You know I'm your biggest cheerleader.
Miss Tate, you had the biggest smile on your face as you were watching that and watching your daughter and all of the wonderful things that she said about you. What is going through your mind to see her honor your legacy?
I'm shocked because I'm just Mama at home, so I'm really in shock, and I love knowing that they know that, because it took me a long time to even tell my children what I had done. So to see that she's talking about it is really a surprise.
And it's so special. And you might be Mama at home, but you mean so much to so many people in the community. And the NFL's Inspire Change social justice initiative is dedicated to removing barriers to opportunity in areas including education. You've been at the forefront of that. You're one of its change makers for the work that you've done and your foundation continues to do. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing to educate children in the civil rights movement.
Well, we're having the schools come into the TEP Center. And the TEP Center isn't the nickname of the building. It's really the Tate, Etienne, and Prevost Center. And I noticed that as many times as I've visited schools, I can talk to them blue in the face. They don't understand it that way. I want them to see and feel what we went through. And they come to the building, they experience what we went through. They see a film, a black and white film, so they think that happened so long ago. And they don't see me until after the film. So it's like a ghost walk through the door. Okay. Right. So, but I notice a change in them once they leave. They question me. They want to know it all, and I feel like they appreciate school a little bit better.
So
yeah.
And you are truly a change maker and a pillar in your community, lifelong native of New Orleans. How does it feel to have the Super Bowl here in your city? How are you feeling?
I'm excited because the city is beautiful right now, and I want it to stay that way, but it's really exciting for us because we're out now. We've been locked up with the snow.
It's going to be a lot of fun. What's the plan? What are you going to do to watch the game?
I'm going home, make some gumbo, and sit down and watch it on TV.
Well, you might have to put the gumbo on the back burner on Sunday evening because you are going to go to the Super Bowl. To the Super Bowl. NFL knows what you do. The NFL wanted to celebrate you, so in partnership with them, you are going to the game. Jesus. So maybe you bring your daughter, maybe you bring someone else. How do you feel about that? What do you think, everybody? What do you think?
I'm
shocked. I don't know.
Yeah?
I'm really surprised.
Oh, that ticket, it's fine. We're going to get you a real ticket. Swoop is messing this one up.
Oh, my
You're gonna have
God.
Such a good
You're
time.
gonna have a good time. You don't even have to worry about the gumbo.
Yeah.
You got food at the
You should
game.
make it anyway for when you come home. Then you can have the gumbo as a treat.
I've already said I was making it. So.
Awesome. Well, congratulations one more time for the civil rights icon.
So excited for you. It was so much fun at the
I'm not mad about that, but look, she said what she said. She gonna go make that gumbo. But definitely wanted to give her flowers because Dr. Leona Tate, again, it's I don't mean to be preachy, but if there's one thing I'm going to tell you guys, learn our history before it's erased. Learn our history before it's whitewashed. There are so many stories, so many things out there that once that knowledge is gone, it's gone. And again, if you have the chance, use more than just use. You can use that smart device in your hand for more than just TikTok. Really learn about Black history because when you see the impact that it's had, it definitely changed your perspective, especially around the United States, because it needs to badly. But again, to Dr. Leona Tate, definitely want to give her flowers. But she gonna go home and make that gumbo. That being said, guys, that's gonna do it for this podcast. Thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I always want to shout out APR TV or always pressrecord.com. Why? Because our show is on their platform and you can watch us either on your computer or your smart devices through the APR TV app or alwayspressrecord.com. Definitely shout them out as my show and other shows on there are there for your viewing pleasure. Definitely check that out. Again, is one of those tables to where it says our viewership, our patronage should be going these places, not Tubi, because I've said many times, guys, Tubi is owned by the same guy who owns Fox News. And at the same time, Tubi is well worth over $100 million. And let's not forget, Tubi is much like Hulu earlier in its early days. Eventually, that patronage, our viewership, built that network. It can build networks that are basically for us to where our dollar goes to us. So definitely check out APR TV. Also check out blurrstation.com. Why? Because it's similar to APR TV, another table to where our viewership, our content, our dollar should be going to. Again, they have movies, they have television shows, they have TV shows coming up that you really want to pay attention to. Simply put, go to blurrstation.com, guys. Click the Join Now button. And also under the Join Now, click the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership. Anybody there under the affiliate name, whether it's myself, Black Spartan, or anybody else there, you can select any one of us. We would certainly appreciate that. $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station, where you can stream to your smart devices as well as to your computer. So definitely check out blurrstation.com and start putting that patronage in our dollars back in our pockets. And finally, runforoffice.org. I say this all the time, guys, about runforoffice.org. Do you want to know how the Moms for Liberty people did it? Do you want to know how the Trump people did it? Do you want to know how the crazy ones did it? Well, this was one of the ways they did it. Run for Office actually helps those that feel the call to public service, whether it's locally or nationally. You just basically put in your address in there, and you can figure out and you can find, and they can walk you step by step on how to get on the ballot, how to be elected, how to actually run a campaign. They go through it all with you. If you do feel the call, if you feel the call to serve. Again, we do need more people in office because with the midterms just being a couple of years away from now, we do need to be able to have people in there. And like I said about Congress at this point, Congress at this point is pretty much a nursing home with power. Yes, there needs to be term limits. Yes, there need to be people that have been there forever and that needs to move out. Yes, we need to actually change the way our governmental system needs to change. But again, it cannot change without you who want to serve. So definitely check out Run for Office. I myself, how the frack we got here. If you basically put all that together, you can find the podcast IG page on IG by typing how the frack we got here. On YouTube, you can find the IG. You can find the YouTube page for how the frack we got here, where all our shows are on YouTube at how the frack we got here. Podcasts are also available on Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, and again, guys, your support is everything. Like, share, subscribe. Switch your notification button on. So that way you guys will always know when we're live, when we're active, and when new episodes are up. Simply put, for all those that do like, that do join, that do comment, keep the conversation going. I thank you because none of this is possible without you. At the same time, guys, again, we need to get active. And again, I say this to Democrats. You actually need to actually start. You need to actually. Wow, I cannot stop saying actually. You need to move forward and actually press the Republicans. Show data, fact check them, because right now you're in that position to where you can filibuster, but they can overcome it. You can protest, but they can overcome it. Now is the time to actually fix a lot of things. Now, do I think that your head of DNC is going to help with that? I don't know. At the same time, guys, you guys can reach out to the people and actually do what you've been sent there to do in the first place. Inform us of what's going on. And at the same time, we prepare for midterms because it's going to be a long ass 2 years. Just saying. But in the meantime, for the rest of us, protect your peace, protect your energy, check on your loved ones. Every once in a while, do something fun. Take your mind out of it. The world will still move forward. We will still be informed. But at the same time, guys, your mental and your physical health are important. Take care of you before someone misses you. And at that time, there's nothing you can do about it. That being said, guys, last thing I say about how the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past and making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to federal governors, and eventually, hopefully, one day, electing our first black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians in office, but still the same old game? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.